is a fat-soluble vitamin. And to remember them, ADIC, the cat is on the ADIC is how we used to remember, and ADIC is A, D, E, and K. So these are the ones that are fat-soluble. Toxic dose observed is after 40,000 international units daily use for more than 12 weeks. So for a few days, if somebody has taken 4,000 units, international units, or 5,000, it doesn't really cause a big issue. So here are the three sources. Number one, sun. So when the ultraviolet B rays, they fall on our skin, they convert the 7-hydroxycholesterol to cholecalciferol. So that is one way. And for this one, please remember, the sun has to be at an angle that the ultraviolet B rays can pass the ozone layer and come down to us. So it is usually, if your shadow is shorter than you, then the sun is probably at the correct angle to cause UVB rays to come to you. If your shadow is longer than you, that means early in the morning or later in the day, then UVB rays normally bounce off of the ozone and do not come down to us. So this is one, sunlight. Secondly is the supplements. Of course, we know about that. Food. In the food, fatty fish or fatty fish liver oils are the ones that are rich in vitamin D. Fortified foods, for example, milk, are also, or cereals, they have vitamin D as well. Mushrooms that are exposed to ultraviolet B rays, they have vitamin D as well. Beef and egg yolk have vitamin D, but they are poor sources of vitamin D. Now what happens is, once we have the cholecalciferol, either from the sun or the supplement or the food, then it goes to liver, and in the liver it is converted to ergocalciferol depending upon the source, or calcifediol. That is what they were using in the study. Now the question is, why did they use this and not cholecalciferol? What they did was, by using calcifediol or 25-hydroxy vitamin D, they were able to bypass the liver's function. So liver function was not a problem, or the absorption was not a problem. What happens is, what we know, and I have some other studies to show you, this 25-hydroxy D is 100% more easier to absorb from intestine as compared to vitamin D3 or the native vitamin D. That is one. Secondly, when we give 25-hydroxy D, so let's say if there is a chart here, and you give native vitamin D, that is vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, then it reaches a plateau level even when you increase the dose. So at certain dose, it does not increase the serum levels even more. However, the calcifediol, when you administer that, it almost has a dose-dependent linear relationship. So as you continue to increase the dose, the absorption is 100% more than the native form, and so the serum levels increase linearly. So in general, the takeaway is, it is actually better to take this if possible compared to native one. But if this is not available and the prescription is not there, then take native. Now this 25-hydroxy vitamin D, which is hydroxylated here, is then further hydroxylated in kidney. And in the kidney, there is another hydroxylating enzyme, which then puts one more hydroxy onto this, and this becomes 125. So now there are two places on vitamin D, place number 1 and 25, where hydroxy units are now attached. So 125 dihydroxy vitamin D, this is the active form. This is the active form. So what they did was, they gave the intermediate form. This is also called pre-hormone. It is one stage before the active form. It needs the kidney to be functioning correctly. Those folks who do not have a correctly functioning kidney, they may have a problem converting here. So in that case, they would need this form. But otherwise, this form is actually better than cholecalciferol. Good. Now, functions of vitamin D. And because we have done like 3 videos, and I have done a video called Can Vitamin D Help Fight COVID-19? And it's about an hour-long video where we discussed in detail the mechanisms. I'm not going to go in detail again, but I want us to kind of review what are the mechanisms, what are the ways that vitamin D helps us. So let's look at them. We all know that vitamin D's primary role that we know it for is calcium, magnesium, and phosphate level maintenance in our body. So that also helps maintain the calcium levels in the bone, and so the bone density and bone strength is also something that is managed by vitamin D. So we all know that. How vitamin D works is this. Vitamin D, the active form, that is 125 dihydroxy vitamin D, it enters the cell, it goes into the cell nucleus where there is vitamin D receptor, it attaches to that receptor, these are called VDR, vitamin D receptors, and then that receptor and vitamin D complex attaches with the genes, various genes in the nucleus, and those genes then get converted to messenger RNAs. Those RNAs would then make proteins that would do the function. So this is how the vitamin D actually causes the functions. There's a comment here, is YouTube still pulling the videos down? Yes. So they continue to pull the videos down, or they demonetize it, and then we put the request in. Sometimes I put it back, sometimes I don't. But they have for sure reduced the exposure of our videos. For example, if my videos used to be watched 10 million minutes every month, now they're watched 5 million minutes. So YouTube just does not suggest it as many times. So I think once they understand that, okay, this is the channel I'm not going to like, then they just reduce the exposure of the channel. Anyways, we'll continue to work. So here, epithelial. So second function, which is really important for the COVID-19 and for other respiratory viruses as well and diseases as well, that is the epithelial barrier maintenance. So imagine this is the airway. So what I've done is I've taken a part of our airway. So let's say this is the airway, right? So I've taken one part and then I have expanded it. The cells here, the epithelial cells, they are fused with each other. They are tightly bound to each other. So if you look at my hands, if these are two cells, when they come in contact, they make tight junctions with each other. So things cannot slip between them and go in. Vitamin D has an important role to maintain these tight junctions. So there are proteins that bind the cells together to maintain the tight junctions. These proteins, the gene to make these proteins, are upregulated by vitamin D. So vitamin D helps make the genes that would helps open the genes that would help make the proteins that cause the epithelial cells to stick to each other and be a team and not allow the virus to penetrate through the junctions and go deeper. So vitamin D would help make the epithelial junction stronger. Very good function and very important function. Then in the kidney, what it does is it reduces the renin-angiotensin system's function. So angiotensin 2 conversion is eventually reduced. So it suppresses the renin-angiotensin 2 system. And you know that renin-angiotensin system, we've talked about it in the past, would eventually create angiotensin 2. And then ACE2 enzyme was needed to convert the angiotensin 2 into angiotensin 1 to 7. I have done these discussion in 2 videos called hypercoagulability with